Scotland is one of the 4 nations of the United Kingdom. It's devolved. Most aspects of government are now devolved, including culture. This is the Scottish Parliament. It was quite controversial when it was built because it was quite expensive. But it's now much loved and very well used. This is the Scottish Government. So these are our MSPs. This is the Cabinet with our First Minister, Nicola Sturgeon. So that's a little bit of context of where we are. So museums and galleries work within a devolved cultural context, and we are the organisation which supports all the museums and galleries in Scotland. So this is who we are, and our jobs really are around providing support for the museums, skills, funding, advice, and advocacy. So I'll be talking a little bit about the advocacy today. And our values up there: collaboration, integrity, passion for museums, integral to all that we do, and courageousness. So this is what we do. So this is really what museums in Scotland do. So collaborative, all of it together, museums are attracting 27.6 million visits, which generates nearly £1 billion per year. So it's a very important part of the Scottish economy. We've got a lot of museums of very different kinds, all sizes, all shapes, but about 460 in total. A Museums Gallery Scotland is there to support all of the museums. We used to be a membership body, now we're a national development body, but we're still an NGO. We get funding from the Scottish Government, but we're an independent charitable trust. And we exist purely to support museums and galleries, and our primary audience is Scotland. So, quite a task supporting all these museums. When we became the national development body, we were asked to produce a national strategy, which we did in 2012, which is this document here. Some of you will have heard me speak about this when it first came out. And that's our vision. We developed the strategy in partnership with the sector. So this is a strategy for the sector, by the sector. So we carried out very extensive consultation in order to come to the vision of Scotland's museums and galleries will be ambitious, dynamic and sustainable enterprises connecting people, places and collections, inspiring, delighting and creating public value. And it's the public value, creating public value, which links very much to what we've been talking about in this conference. Museums improve lives, change lives, they are part of communities. That is the public value. That's social, economic, all of that, that's what we mean. So the Museums Association conference, they talk about museums change lives, and I'll come on to that in a moment, that there are elements of the campaign that they are an example of what we mean by public value. So this is what's at the heart of the national strategy. This is what the sector wanted. And this was the process we undertook. Very, very rigorous. So a lot of consultation, testing, and then we got some Scottish Government input, publication, and after that, only after we had the strategy, did we then look at the delivery plan. There was pressure put on us at the start to just go into a dark room and write a national strategy for all these museums. And we pushed back and said, no, this has to involve the sector. So a lot of workshops, a survey, the testing, we had a critical friend, and to make sure that our drafts were capturing the language of the sector, the way that people spoke to us, the language and words they were using. The strategy had to reflect that back in order that people would feel it was their strategy. And that's what we've achieved. So the sector, museums use and refer to the strategy in their own forward plans, their own business plans, because it's relevant, it's what they're doing. And that was the process that we refined. And it's not easy. Again, the Scottish Government said, would you write a delivery plan at the same time? We said, no. And our minister got quite angry at that point. I said, no, we'll do that separately. And it was the right thing to do. So ownership of the national strategy first, buy-in through that process. We've revisited it since, sort of 3 years on, we checked again, and the aims of the strategy are still standing. So we have 6 aims that we work around. So our work is structured around that in terms of funding, advice, but the sector use these throughout that work, and we know it's used across the board because we check and ask, is it still working? So aim 1 is around collections. Aim 2 is about connecting people, places, and collections. Aim 3 is about the workforce. Aim 4 is about the sustainability of our sector and encouraging an enterprising approach. 5 is about collaboration. And 6, one of the reasons I'm here, is it's about international. So in these changing times, it's very important to look out, to look at ourselves, but also to look out to the world and put ourselves in a broader global context so we can see our work and we can learn from our colleagues and our practitioners around the world. So again, this is a very important part of our work, and I say one of the reasons I'm here today. So from strategy to action. So we've had one delivery plan, which was really, really thick. So that was for 2 years, and it was almost like a trial testing of a methodology of what would work and how people would be able to deliver it. We had a lot of measures, and I think Renata came to the actual first delivery of that. So we learned through that process. So we produced another one last year, which is a 4-year strategy, delivery plan, realising the vision. And the 4-year, the whole action plan is that. So that's 4 years of work, and it identifies roles, things that Museums Galleries Scotland needs to do, but also things that the sector needs to do in order to deliver the national strategy. So it's a framework. It's quite flexible, and people deliver at their own pace, and then we collect the data to ensure that we are moving towards fulfilling the aims of the national strategy, and we report it back. So we're not proving that museums are delivering the national strategy. We are evidencing. So we evidence, we collect some big data, so the big figures that translate into economic impact, so the numbers of visits and so forth. So a small amount of big data, and then we evidence with case studies and best practice and how people are demonstrating this creation of public value. In terms of the 3 priority areas for this phase of delivery, advocacy, enterprise, and skills. In terms of the advocacy, we've undertaken a campaign, Museums Messages, in response to feedback from the sector. People want to learn how to articulate the value of what they do. So we could have told the politicians many things. Our main target for this is politicians, and then from that, the public perception. So we've honed it down to 3 messages: tackling inequalities, placemaking, and contribution to economic impact. We started this process with a Twitter campaign last Christmas. Museums gave to me 12 days of Christmas. I was a little bit sceptical, if I'm honest. My staff said, this is what we're going to do. And I was like, okay. And there was a huge response over Christmas. So people were tweeting what their museums gave to them. And we used those little snippets of information to form the basis of templates, putting in these facts and figures of how to talk to your stakeholders, how to talk to your politician, how to talk to the press, but around these messages, and coaching museums to learn to be able to articulate their value and their messages around these 3 areas. We then followed it up with an invitation to all the politicians to meet with their local museum and see what work was being done. We've had a tremendous response. We've reached most of the cabinet of the government. So the museums come out, and we are coaching the museums not just to show them the collections, because often the politician has been to that museum, they visited it as a child, it's local to them, but to show them the things around inequalities, around economic impact, perhaps the politician didn't know about. So the programmes, the outreach programmes, behind the scenes, meet the volunteers, understand some of these high-impact projects that our museums are doing day by day. So we're not asking the museums to change what they do, we're asking them to tell the politicians about the things that they perhaps don't, they just see part of their work, but they don't tell anybody about it. So, as I say, massive engagement. It's a long journey, though. We know, realistically, to get politicians to be able to quote these examples on a regular basis in Parliament, parliamentary motions, we've had some as a result, but it's a slow build. So this is what this campaign has been about. So if you look on our website, you'll see the templates, the guidance of how to go about this. We're working with partners on a museum day. So the Scottish Museums Federation had the first one in October, and we work and collaborate with the Museums Association in this area as well. So going back to those three priorities, another one is enterprising. So we sponsor Enterprising Museum of the Year. We like to celebrate, we like to showcase. And this is the winner from last year, which is the Bigger Museum. And they also deliver on the placemaking. So this is a museum that got turned down for one of our major funders, the Heritage Lottery. So they turned to the local community to raise the money to regenerate this museum. And they bought what was an old petrol station and made it into the museum on the high street. And that has brought tourists to the area. The butcher now reports a much higher footfall in his shop on the high street, all down to this museum, and far wider impacts. And they now have a very healthy relationship with their local community, and the fundraising continues. And then this is second example. This is actually a video from the Museums Change Lives programme, but it's the Scottish Maritime Museum who was the joint winner with Bigger for another programme. If we show the film, please.
We started with the joint project of taking young people on and having our boats restored at the same time. And the ideal way to do that was to create the Scottish Boat Building School, and that allowed us to take on 8 trainees, train them up, give them basic woodworking skills and produce some St Iles skiffs, but also to restore some of the museum vessels.
It's given people the opportunity to learn a skill that's keeping boat building alive, which facilitates restoration of existing museum projects. Plus, skills are also very transferable, so they can be transferred into the joinery industry, construction industry.
The museum works with the local community, community service, community payback orders, general volunteers, trainees aged from 16 to 29 who have come through us because they're either young offenders, long-term unemployed, or have other difficulties that we work with. And at the back of that, we have a commercial arm that will hopefully do commercial repairs on commercial boats as well to make sure that we can generate our income and become a sustainable operation. It's been fantastic to watch the young people. We've now had 3 years of trainees go through, the vast majority who have succeeded in employment.
It's brilliant. We've got a variety of characters in the workshop, which makes it a fun environment.
Started here as a technical assistant. Looking forward to getting up in the morning and kind of coming into work because I enjoy working with the boats. It's motivated me to keep trying to work hard and improve myself.
I'm learning loads of technical skills and also boat building, which I haven't done before.
When you create something out of nothing, I think it's a great thing for anyone's self-confidence, whether you're young or old.
It's turned my life around because I was unemployed before this, and nearly 2 years I've been here. At the end of the day, seeing a physical product in front of you, it's not, I don't think it's much better than that.
I can do a lot more things at home now, and I can teach my daughter like how to build some things, and she absolutely loves it. It's brought a lot more confidence out in me, and I can do so much more without being shy behind it. I can just like go out and just do it.
The Scottish Boat Building School has got to be one of the best things that we've done as the museum, out with the typical museum structure. It's allowed us to have better exhibits, it's allowed us to develop, to give the skills to a new set of trainees to restore and maintain wooden boats, both in a display capacity and a sailing capacity.
It's like a gateway to the rest of the world for me. It opens a door, really, for anyone of my age. I can use this to go anywhere.
I think everybody agreed totally delivers on the skills priority. The boats that they're building there, the national strategy has a picture on the front of rowing. The boats they're building is a St Iles skiff, which we funded another museum to change the traditional boat building to be able to have a traditional boat that the community could afford to fundraise to build. So those apprentices are working on a traditional boat, but redesigned to be more cost-effective and for the community to deliver. So a very different kind of museum project. Finally, this one is Hampden Park, and this is the Scottish Football Museum. Many of you will know that because they have visited Brazil and have been part of the Transform project. And their work, based in the Hampden Park Stadium, one of the projects they are now globally leading on is Scottish sports heritage reminiscence. So this project here is working with Alzheimer and dementia sufferers using the collections of the Scottish Museum of football to really reach new audiences and to trigger memories that are actually contributing hugely in terms of people's lives, those who are suffering from Alzheimer's, but also their carers' lives as well. But a leading museum in terms of some of the first talking about the heritage of football. This partnership now, I was at a conference last week, and I say they are now the global leader in this area of work. But they're extending the partnership to other sporting forms, and we're funding that. So you're rolling out, establishing a great methodology, and that's very much what we're doing as a museum development body, identifying best practice, sharing it, and rolling it out. And this was using the collections as a starting point for the reminiscence work, and I say reaching the older male Alzheimer's sufferers, which are often forgotten about. So in terms of the Transform project for us as a partner within this project, there's been dissemination of the methodology we're using in Scotland. The Scottish Football Museum has an established partnership now with São Paulo Football Museum, knowledge exchange with São Paulo, which we continue with Renata here, and also looking at the development for the future of museum training opportunities. So you can find more information about Museums Galleries Scotland on our website. A lot of the resources we produce for Scotland are there and available for others to tap in. We're very happy to work with people here if there's anything you're interested in. One of the initiatives you may be interested in is our Festival of Museums. So I'm around if anybody wants to talk about that later. Thank you.